Interior Mutability, it's a pattern used by RefCell in Rust. You can mutate the underlying data even with multiple immutable references to it. Normally in Rust, the borrowing rules disallow this. We're going to take a look at this pattern and explore the RefCell. My name is Ricky, and welcome to the dev method. So the interior mutability pattern, in order to do this, Rust actually gives us a specific feature to it called Unsafe, and it allows you to bypass some of the borrowing rules in Rust in whichever form you want inside a little block of code called Unsafe. So when you're running code in the unsafe area of the code, you're letting Rust know that you as the programmer are taking responsibility for any issues that might come up in that part of the program. So all the checks for the rules are done manually by yourself as the programmer. This unsafe Rust code is actually discussed more in chapter 19, so we won't be going over it here, but if you want to read up on it, I would just go there in the Rust programming book, chapter 19. You can even mark methods and functions as unsafe, which then require others who use those method or functions to wrap it in an unsafe block. So you might be thinking to yourself, why would I use RefCell instead of just like the regular Rust stuff, like the borrow checker? Because that's a big feature of Rust. Why wouldn't I use that already built in? Well, here's the thing. So RefCell, it's not like completely taking it away. It's just a trade-off of where that check actually happens. In previous videos, we've talked about box. So when we're talking about RefCell, it's safe to compare the two in this particular way. So if we have a RefCell, all of the checks that are happening are at runtime. So as the program is running, it's checking to see, oh, did you already have a borrowed mutable pointer or not? And if you did, then there's going to be a runtime error. So that error would come up when the program actually runs. Versus a box or something like a box, all those borrow checking stuff, that happens while you're actually compiling the code. So you wouldn't even be able to create a binary to run unless that compiler check passed. So for a moment, let's just recall what some of the borrowing rules are as they pertain to this subject of the RefCell and interior mutability. At any given time, you can have either, but not both, one mutable reference or any number of immutable references. References must always be valid. So there is an advantage to the borrowing rules that we've already been using in Rust. Because they're checked at compile time, we can find the errors sooner in development rather than later. And by sooner, I'm not just talking about like a couple weeks or months or days, but literally just like as you're writing the code, you wouldn't be able to run the program unless it passed that guarantee that everything is safe. Now, because it does that, the Rust compiler is actually very conservative with those borrowing rules. There are scenarios or instances where we as the programmers would know that it's okay to break some of those borrowing rules as we're writing our program. So it is actually possible for the Rust compiler to reject a correct program because of these conservative looks at the code. So if you're sure that your code follows these borrowing rules correctly, but the compiler is still rejecting your program, that's maybe when you take a look at something like RefCell. Now, big disclaimer here, just like reference counting or RC with Rust, we don't want to be using RefCell in a multi-threaded environment. It is single-threaded only. So between RC, reference counting, box, and RefCell, let's just recap a little bit some of the likenesses and differences between them. So RC has multiple owners of the same data, reference counting them as you go. Then there's box and RefCell that have single owners. So box allows immutable and mutable borrow checks at compile time. RC only allows immutable checks at compiler time. RefCell allows immutable and mutable borrow checks at runtime. You can mutate the data inside the immutable RefCell because the mutable borrow checking is at runtime. So real quick on the screen, I just want to show you something that is actually not able to run. So here we are, we have the immutable value of an I32, and then we want to reference it as mutable. So we will not be able to do this at compile time. All right, cargo run. And here it is. It says consider changing to mutable, right? Because it's immutable. And then we're just magically saying it's mutable now. So you can't really do that because we're trying to borrow it. Yeah. So let's take a look at one use case where you might use a RefCell, or you might use the Interior Mutability Pattern. So take, for example, something like dependency injection or mocked objects. So in Rust, the programming language, there is no built-in way to mock something. And so a mock, if you haven't seen it in other programming languages before, we're talking about something that's like a placeholder type or a placeholder implementation of something. And you're giving that into your function. And therefore, that function is then going to operate on that object just via its interfaces, or in this case, the traits that it has. And you're going to be able to tell whether it's working correctly or not in your test. It's also referred to something called a test double. So mock objects, they record what happened, and then you can determine from there if it's being used correctly. So here I have an example that I just want to show you. So let's start on line 6, where we have this messenger trait, and it implements one method, one associated function here that is send. And so it takes a reference to self, and then it takes some sort of message. And the idea here is that we're going to build some sort of mock object in our test so that we can track whether it's operating correctly and just like remembering how many times it was called. So we have this struct limit tracker, and it takes something that is a messenger. So what we're doing is we're tracking a maximum limit to some sort of value that's changing, and we're going to compare the two. That's the idea. So that's where this value comes in here. That could be changing, but then we set what the max limit is. So now we have here implementing the tracker as if T was a messenger. That's all that that's saying. And we just have our own little constructor. Then we have our set value thing, and that does some special stuff. We're going to skip over that for now. That's not as important. But here's our test. So we have all this in the same lib.rs file, and we have our test module here so that when we run cargo test, it's going to run anything that has a test in it. So in this case, it's going to run this one particular test here, so because it has test annotated on it like so. Now, here is our mock. So here's our mock messenger. So notice I have the struct declared here on line 50, and we just have our any old property or any old thing here added to it. And then we're going to have an implementation of how to create a new one. And it's simply just saying, okay, we're going to use a RefCell, and it's going to be an empty vector to start. That's all we're doing. That's as far as we got. Now, I do have a couple of different implementations. So we're going to start with the ones that are uncommented first, and then I'll comment, and I'll make some of the code active and some of the code commented so you can see how they run differently, so I can break it down for you. But we have here sending, right? Now, that's from this messenger trait. So we have to implement this in order to pass the compiler. Now we have that immutable reference to self, and we're going to say sent messages, and we want to push some data onto it. So that's the idea of like keeping track of this. Now the string we're just like making copies of it, so let's not worry about that part. But here we have the mutable borrow here. So we're using the RefCell to make this happen. And then we're going to be doing the same thing with the assertion down here below. So here we just have a borrow. So that's the code that we have so far. All right, so down here below, we have our module for tests. And let's just do this real quick. Let's not use the RefCell, okay? So then here, just show what it's like without that part. And we'll see some of the Rust analyzer like telling us that there's issues as I'm editing this code here. But then this is what we think we could probably do. So actually, the Rust analyzer, is there any issue that we have? Let me see. So let's do this. Okay, so yeah, here's where it comes out. So this is already telling us that we have an issue. So we cannot borrow the sent messages as mutable because it's marked as immutable. This is giving us the full diagnostics here. Consider changing it to a mute reference, but then we actually are not implementing the trait. So if we did that, we'd get actually a totally different error now. So we're kind of like just moving the errors around the code. Yeah, so type trait. Yeah, it's not going to work. So this is exactly why we would want to use something like a RefCell. So let's add that part back in that I had removed, just so you can see the difference. Okay, so now we have the RefCell for the sent messages, and then we have the new RefCell made here. Now, what we can't do is like access the information directly. There's a little bit of magic going on here. So this is what we can do. So we get sent messages, and that's actually the messenger, but it's a RefCell. But we need to push onto it. So you can't call push directly. So you have to borrow it first. You have to explicitly say, I'm either borrowing it as an immutable or a mutable. So here we are borrowing as a mutable. And then that's how we can get the push on here. The thing is with this push, let me comment this part out here, but let me show you another way we could write this. So we have this RefMut, which actually comes from this same use statement here. So I'll need that there. But that's essentially what we're getting with the first couple lines. So we're borrowing mutably. So we have this new type, RefMut. And then how do we actually push onto it? Well, there's something behind the scenes going on. If you've seen this in the other videos, you might notice this too. But there's this Deref trait, and Ref and RefMut, they both implement this trait here. So RefMut, what it's doing is it's dereferencing it automatically. Like when it's running this code down here, it's automatically dereferencing this. That's what the compiler does for us. It's really cool. And then it's also assuming that it's a mutable reference because we're calling push on it. So we're being really explicit in our code by just saying that it is a mutable reference, and then we're explicitly dereferencing it ourselves. So this code also works. So that's the idea. But I'm going to put in the short form. This is what we actually see in the book on line 75 here. So I have a couple of websites that might help us out with something like this. So here I have borrow mute. And I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can read more about this. But essentially what it says is it mutably borrows the wrapped value. So if we also look at the dereferencing the mutable here, I have it in the browser here on line 1733. Essentially, you're kind of seeing here's that unsafe code that they're using that we talked about in the beginning. But then it's dereferencing it, and that's how we get this all to work. It's just all working behind the scenes. So pretty cool. So back to the borrow mute, there's also a borrow. So as these methods are getting called, there's actually a tracker in the background just tracking how many times they're getting called. And that's how we know at runtime whether we have adhered to the borrowing rules inside of Rust. So for example, let's go back to our code. Let me take out this one here, and let me do this implementation. So this will actually pass the compiler, but it will not pass the test. We'll actually have a runtime error with this. So I'm going to run this test with this version of the send code in the mock. So you'll see that this actually fails. So we have cargo. We could just do cargo build. So that just builds just the lib, but that's not necessarily the test module itself. But if we do cargo test, it'll build the module, which this is stored in, and then it'll run the test. So let's check for the build output, and then let's also check for the test failure. All right, so I just ran into something here. I have to put in a borrow down here as well. All right, let's go back up. All right, so here's that code, cargo test. All right, so it actually built just fine. Oh, we have an unused variable, so let's forget that one. But here you can see RefCell, the test, finished, and it ran. That is the compiler check saying, as far as I know, everything looks good. But then it runs the test, and then that fails. And it actually fails at runtime. And then this is where you get the borrow mute error. So that is an error actually thrown inside of Rust at runtime. So essentially this borrow mute is using try borrow mute under the hood. That's all it's doing. So let's look at the source. And so this is what the source of that code actually does. Now, we might not know all the inner workings of it, but it's kind of nice to look at it just to see what it does. So it actually returns back a result. So if you recall from previous videos, a result, there's something that's okay or successful, and then something that's an error or a failure. So here's that error, actually. And if you take a look here, let's see. So they create something new. And then it says if there is something there, there's some sort of like, set something happening. But here's again more unsafe code. And then it keeps going. And then if there was nothing there, I guess everything's okay. And it passes on that value and passes on this thing called B that is returned as, I guess, the borrow ref mute. Yeah. Now here's something I found as well, borrow mute. So it does the try, like I was saying before, but then if that doesn't work, then this is where it throws that runtime exception. You might have seen this being demonstrated in previous videos as well. So if it does throw an error, it actually calls this except, so like already borrowed. So that's exactly the error that we have. Let me switch back to VS Code. There it is, already borrowed. So that is the exact error that we have. But yeah, that's kind of like what's going on underneath the hood. So as things get dropped or go out of scope, that internal count of like what's been borrowed, whether it's mutably or immutably, that's all tracked inside the RefCell. So let's have multiple owners of the same mutable data by combining a reference count or RC with a RefCell. So now I'm switching back to the main.rs file, and we're going to go back to the list that we had a couple videos ago, so you guys can see an example of both of them working in tandem and maybe where it could be really useful. So here's our list. Again, it's a cons list, so we are going to tail on and combine multiple cons lists together to make one master list. That is the idea. Now, without looking too much at this thing here, let's look at line 13. So this is our value. This is the value that we want to change. We want to make go from like 5 to like 15. So that's where we have this plus 10, store it back inside this value. And so we have that borrow mutable again, right? So that's going to work because we have the single value. Now, as I'm highlighting it, you'll see also on the screen, it highlighted everywhere else in its usage. And that would be line 15 and line 20. So on line 15, we're putting it into A. Well, then where is A also used? So A is used here, it's cloned into list B and into list C. But they have two different values that are also tacked onto it. So it should be like 3, 5, and then 4, 5. That's the idea. And then we're printing out all the values here. So let's take a look at what all of these lists look like. We're just going to print them out. So here we do cargo run. All right, so here's the output. We have A. So this is just the original list, the A list here. And then let's look at B. So that should have 3 and 15, right? It originally had 5 when it was put into the list. Same thing with C. We have 4, and then you would think it's 5 because we cloned it. But we actually are referencing it. And so here we are mutating that reference from the outside after they've already been cloned into B and C. So that's kind of cool. It could be really great for your data structures as you're adding on to them. So sometimes you need this trade-off. It's a runtime check rather than the compile time check. So this might run, or this might build in your application, but it might not actually run as you'd expect. So that's where you have to actually run the program and check it out. Now, in chapter 16 of the Rust programming book, there's actually something called a Mutex. Because the RefCell is single-threaded only, if you needed to do multi-threaded something, I'd suggest looking at chapter 16 of the Rust programming book where they talk about Mutex. All right, thanks for watching. If you guys like what I have here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button or give it a thumbs up. Send it to somebody you think that would enjoy this video. Otherwise, take care.